Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a nice day. Today we're going to be talking about the film Fantastic Four that just came out the other day. It goes without saying that this review does not contain spoilers. It is spoiler-free. So if you're worried about being spoiled, if you haven't seen the film yet, fear not, because I will not spoil you. So let's get right into it. Going into this film, I actually thought there was a good chance that it was going to be decent. I had a positive outlook. And then a few days before the film came out, I started seeing the reviews, and it didn't look good. In fact, it looked horrifying. It had like 10% on Rotten Tomatoes at one point. That's never a good sign. But I went to see it anyway, because even if it's bad, I can just rail on it and point out all the plot holes and basically just make fun of it, so that works too. But I was actually looking forward to actually rounding off the summer with a decent film. That would have been nice. I should have really stopped with Ant-Man. I should have just stopped there and just cut it short and just waited for Star Wars Episode 7. But unfortunately, I saw Fantastic Four last night. I could have stayed home and just watched the finale of The Daily Show. No, I chose to waste my time at my local theater. For you, my loyal viewers, I wasted my evening. I wasted $9.50 watching a movie nobody should ever watch. So let's get right into the review. It's been a decade since Tim Story's abomination of a Fantastic Four film. You remember that one back in 2005? The one that was just pure camp and it sucked in every way, shape, and form imaginable? Yeah, it's been 10 years, and Fox still hasn't learned a damn thing. It's the exact same film with different actors. It sucks just as much as it did back then. Why? Because once again, Fox created a film with a promising start that very, very quickly descended into pure, utter drivel. By the time the credits roll, if you haven't walked out of the theater by then, you will begin to question your sanity. Because that is how bad this film is. Let me start out by saying that the first half of this film is actually quite decent. The first 50 minutes or so is actually like a build-up, like an origin story, so to speak. It's actually pretty well done. The acting is decent. There's good dialogue. And the story builds in a direction that I felt was very promising. Unfortunately, then the second and third act kicks in, and it very, very quickly falls apart, like a house of cards, and it's just horrible from there on out. The acting just turns to shit, the dialogue turns to shit, the final action sequence is basically a series of loud noises and flashing lights that has no structure whatsoever, kind of like the first Fantastic Four. You remember that one? Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. 10 years, and they still haven't learned. And those who do not learn from their mistakes are doomed to repeat them. And Fox repeated them again. Now, of course, the question is why? Because they hired a stupid director who didn't know what he was doing. That's why. Believe it or not, most comic book films in general, that are catastrophic can be traced back to the director. And in this case, the director is a man named Josh Trank, a brilliant man who's created a vast quantity of timeless classics. Just kidding. He made one film, and it was called Chronicle. Yeah, remember Chronicle back in, I don't even remember what year that was. But Chronicle is basically a film with an impressive build-up and a horribly calamitous finale, which is basically the exact same thing that Fantastic Four is. I mean, that's not a surprise, considering it's the same director. But it's not just Trank. There's also an underlying trend here. The 2005 Fantastic Four film was made by a man named Tim Story, who also didn't have a very impressive resume. He's the guy who came up with Barbershop and Taxi, those two films that nobody liked. And then he was tasked with making Fantastic Four, and of course it bombed. And then he made the sequel, and it bombed even harder. Is the trend becoming apparent now? Yeah, bad directors typically make bad films. That's the trend. And then you've got Mark Webb, the brilliant director who was tasked with rebooting the Spider-Man franchise. Though I think the title, The Amazing Spider-Man, is not entirely accurate for a film that really should be called The Amazingly Campy Spider-Man. Because that's what it was. And the sequel, which I like to call Spider-Man versus the Electric Retard. Don't complain, that's what it was. I speak the truth. Deal with it. Now, contrast this utter embarrassment with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man series, and you can see the difference in quality. Now, of course, you're going to say, oh, what about Spider-Man 3? Spider-Man 3 doesn't count. You know why? Because the film studio didn't let Raimi tell the story he wanted to tell. Raimi wanted to do Vulture. They said, yeah, we got to do Venom. You got to do the symbiote storyline. It's no other way. Raimi's like, we don't have enough time. We already have Sandman and Hobgoblin in this movie. We don't have the hours required to tell a story of that magnitude with that many bad guys. And of course it tanked, but I like to think it tanked because he sabotaged it purposefully by turning Peter Parker into an emo just to spite the studio for not letting him tell the story he wanted to tell. Because why wouldn't you let Sam Raimi tell the story he wants to tell? He's a genius. He made the fucking Evil Dead series. Just let him do his thing. Don't tell him what to do. Don't jerk him around. But no, they don't get it. And of course, it led to one of the worst superhero films ever. But I digress. We're getting a bit off track. Let's get back on track. Let's talk about X-Men. Let's talk about X-Men really quickly. Remember how good the first X-Men and X2 were? They were awesome. Why? Because they were directed by Bryan Singer, the guy who made The Usual Suspects, one of the best films ever made. Yeah. See, good directors make good movies. And then you look at X-Men 3. X-Men, what was it even called? I don't even remember what it was called. It was The Last Stand, which was horrifyingly awful. Why? Because it was made by a different dude who happened to be named Brett Ratner. Yes, that Brett Ratner, the guy who made Rush Hour, the movie that fucking sucked and was stupid and nobody cared about it. And he made the sequel too. Oh, good job, Brett Ratner. Let's just let you fucking film X-Men 3. It'll be great. No, it wasn't great. You know, it was so bad that they actually had to rehire Bryan Singer to direct X-Men Days of Future Past so that they could rectify every awful event that happened in that third movie. That's what ended up happening, is they actually had to rehire the original guy and say, fix this, please. We don't know how to fix it. He killed off almost all of the characters. But to be fair, Bryan Singer did direct Superman Returns, which was a bad film, though I will defend to the death that it is still better than Man of Steel, which sucked balls. Good directors often make good films. Sometimes they have brain farts. It happens. There are exceptions to the rule. Sometimes a bad director makes a decent film. But let's turn our attention to the best of the best in the comic book film industry. Yes, I'm talking about two people, the creme de la crop, Christopher Nolan and Joss Whedon. Yes, the directors of The Dark Knight and The Avengers, respectively, though I would argue that the former has quite a bit more talent than the latter. But, you know, they're both pretty good. When these two dudes were tasked with creating The Dark Knight and The Avengers, it was easy for them. They made masterpieces. Why? Because these two guys have been making masterpieces their whole career. Christopher Nolan made The Prestige and Memento before he made The Dark Knight. And then Whedon had Serenity, which if you haven't seen it, it is a fucking amazing film. Watch it. What I'm trying to say here, I guess the point that I'm trying to make, is that the make or break of a comic book film boils down to the director. And what we've learned here is that 20th Century Fox is terrible at picking directors for their superhero films, with the exception of Bryan Singer. That's the only one they got right. Everyone else sucks. Why is this Fantastic Four as bad as the original Fantastic Four? Because Tim Story and Josh Trank are both in the same boat. They're both terrible directors. That Fox chose to direct terrible movies. That's why. But you know, the most damning thing about this film is the fact that it commits virtually every mistake that the first one made. They rebooted it just to make the same crap. I mean, minus the excessive campiness in the original. I mean, that was the main problem with the original. It was all camp, no substance, no grit, nothing. It was just completely, totally, ridiculously bad. But you see a lot of hallmarks in these two films that are similar. You got the underdeveloped villain. You've got the lack of structure. You've got the finale that's basically like a train going off the rails, falling off a cliff, sinking in a tar pit, and then exploding in a nuclear fireball. That is just amazing that they both managed to pull that shit off. I don't know how it's possible. Oh, did I mention the CGI is awful? It was horrible. It looked like they either had like a $1 million budget or the CGI was just plain unfinished. It was really noticeably bad. Either way, the graphics are dated, and that doesn't really help this film's case by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, even if the graphics were good, it wouldn't make up for the fact that the story's crap. But I think that we can now officially conclude with finality that 20th Century Fox does not know how to make a good Fantastic Four movie. They simply can't do it. For whatever reason, they have had 3 tries, they have had 3 attempts, they have struck out all 3 times. They need to be banned from making any more of these. Fox, you basically have 2 choices here, okay? Option 1, just hand the rights back to Marvel, okay? They'll apply their repetitive formula to it, and they'll make it actually enjoyable to watch, which is better than what you're doing with it, okay? At least their formula is a good formula. Your formula of just having a nice build-up to a calamitous finale that everyone hates just isn't working. Try harder next time, or give it to Marvel. Or, better yet, hire Bryan Singer to direct Fantastic Four 2. That'd be amazing. That would work. Just hire him. He knows what the hell he's doing. Just have him do all your films, really. I mean, would that not solve all their problems? Would it? I think at long last, I now have the honor of awarding a film a meager 1 star out of 4. Congrats, Trank. You deserve it. You truly do. That's all I have to say. It's a terrible film. Every other film I've reviewed so far, I would probably recommend that you see it and make up your own mind. I don't like people, watching a review and, letting the review form an opinion for them. But in this case, I'm going to make an exception. Don't watch this movie. Don't see it. It's a waste of your money. There's no real reason to see it. And the people who made it should feel great shame. They should feel great shame, not only for wasting our time, but wasting the time of the editors, the cinematographer, all the people who worked on the CGI, the people who supplied the sounds, the music. All these people basically wasted 6 months of their time working on this utter piece of crap, and Fox should apologize to all of them for this utter embarrassment of a film, this embarrassment to the film industry. It will not stand, and I demand retribution immediately. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you're looking at this on PMC, give it a diamond for Christ's sake. Why not? You got unlimited diamonds anyway. Just spread them around. And I will see you guys in December when I'll review episode 7. I will see you guys then. Gray Remnant signing out. Goodbye, you guys.